So we will start our session today by paying our obeisances to His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. We are in our journey for 4th chapter, which is titled as Transcendental Knowledge. So we did give the recitation of 4.2 shloka last week, and I would like to thank Trupti ji, Shivani ji, Ramaprabha ji, and I think I saw Kavya ji's recording as well. Thank you all for sending it over. I would just like to give the platform if Hari Krishna ji and Reshma ji, if you would like to recite it, it's appearing on the screen.
Yeah, sure. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakale neha mahata yoga nastaha parantapa.
Thank you. Reshma ji, would you like to?
Ivat parampara prapatam imam rajarsya viduhu sa kale neha mohota yogo nashtaha parampara.
Yeah, Parantapa. Thank you.
Parantapa.
Right, thank you. Okay, with that, I think we will start with the session today. So we are in our journey for, like I said, 4th chapter, which has 42 verses, of which last week we were able to catch up on the first 2 topics. Today we will try for the 3rd section, and we'll touch base a bit of 4th section as well. So so the title for the 3rd topic section is Krishna, the creator and culmination of all paths. And this is one of the very important shlokas again, which we will go through why it is so. But maybe Hari Krishna ji, will you be able to recite it?
Yeah, sure, Mataji. Ye yada mam prapadyante tam stadaiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushyaha partha sarvashaha.
Thank you. And the English translation? So the English translation is as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pratha, right? So the shloka says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante, right? So who all, yeah? Mam is me, right? To Krishna. So Krishna is highlighting that all of whom, ye yatha, mam prapadyante. Prapadyante means surrender. Yeah. So all surrender to me. Yeah. Tam sthataiva bhajamiham. Yeah. I reward them accordingly. And mama vartamanu vartante. Yeah. All paths, come eventually to me. Manushyaha partha sarvasa. Yeah. O partha, in all respects, right? So here Krishna is highlighting that he is reciprocal, right? So he is not someone who who doesn't have feelings, or who for whom our efforts don't matter, nothing on that sort. Here it is very clear that Krishna is reciprocal. He reciprocates to us. Yeah. And we will see, how in different degrees in the next slide, how different degrees of realization and that surrender, and what Krishna rewards accordingly. Yeah. So there are degrees of realization, right? So Krishna rewards the devotees according to their different intensities of love for him. Yeah. So the, it's like it's not about impartiality or partiality. It's not about partiality, right? Here it's about, maybe, there was a story which I was hearing, which said about a father and his two sons. Yeah. The elder son is, is really very misbehaved, very naughty, and he doesn't have value for money. He's spendthrift, and he doesn't respect elders, and so he's really not in line, right? And the other son, the younger one, is just the opposite, right? So the father, as a father, for him, both of his children are equal, right? There's no difference. And he tries his best to make the first son understand, right? But eventually, the first son was really adamant, and he was very keen, and he ends up asking, the share of the property to be divided between both the sons. Now eventually father, undergoes that, and he gives him what, and and at the end we see how, because the son who was obedient to his father, who had surrendered, the father was always there with him to guide. Whereas the other son, who was adamant, he got all the material comforts which he asked, but eventually, he landed up in trouble, right? So he realized that and eventually he came back to his father, and the father accepted him. So Krishna is our universal father, right? He's father of all, right? He says later in Bhagavad Gita that aham bija pradapta, right? He is the seed giving father for all of us. We will go through that verse also later in Bhagavad Gita. So as we surrender to Krishna, Krishna rewards accordingly, that obedience, that surrender is needed. So because it depends on the intensity of our love towards Krishna, for us to follow the path of Krishna, our willingness to follow the path of Krishna, right? And then Krishna, here it's mentioned that people on different paths do not realize different things. They realize different degrees and aspect of Krishna. What, what that means is that, we saw in the yoga ladder, right, in the second chapter, that there are different parts of the ladder, right? We went through karma kanda, we went through Sakam Karma Yoga, Nishkam Karma Yoga, Jnana Yogis, Ashtanga Yogis. So there were different, levels of the ladders, right? And now, rungs of the ladders, right? So now all of them eventually lead where? To Krishna, right? It's just that there are different aspects which each of them, now different people follow different paths, right? Like for example, some do demigod worship, right? And some do some like sakam karmas, right? When we go, it's they follow the Vedas, right? And karma kandi people is sorry karma kandi people follow the Vedas. Now and sakam karma, we see as the ladder progresses, we see that there is a Brahman aspect which Jnana yogis worship for Krishna. Then we see Ashtanga yogis are more into Paramatma. So there are different parts, but eventually anything at the end are under the laws of Krishna. It is eventually legal, right? So there are different degrees also, because we learned the three aspects of absolute truth as well. The first one is Brahman realization, Paramatma, and then Bhagwan realization, right? So the degrees are different, but these are all the aspects of Krishna, right? So in the spiritual world, Krishna reciprocates with his devotees just as the devotees want him, right? So not only when we are talking about different degrees, but there are different relationships also, right? And in spiritual world, we'll come down what in material world, but in spiritual world also, we have our own relationship with Krishna, right? In last classes, I think we also mentioned 5 different relationships, right? We all, originally, we as souls, we have our own individual relationship with Krishna, right? And which is like either we are serving Krishna as a dasya bhav, shantras, which is neutrality, and then it is like friendship, right? Sakya bhav, or it is like parental love, which is vatsalya or madhurya, right? As a lover. So there are different kind of relationships, right? And Krishna in spiritual world reciprocates to his pure devotees, based on the relationship they have as well, right? And then comes to material world, right? Here he's clearly saying in this shloka that he similarly reciprocates, right, to different kind of worshippers, but as per their approach, right? So it is as per how you, and we will clarify this further, because in 9th chapter also Krishna gives different parts examples, and we have mentioned it, it's in the purport here. So Krishna highlight in the purport, it's highlighted that everyone follows my path in all respects. Doesn't mean that whatever anyone does will achieve same end result, right? If this was so, then Krishna would not have highlighted. We learned in 3.31 and 3.32. What did we learn? In 3.31, Krishna highlighted that those persons who execute their duties according to his injunctions, who follow his teaching faithfully without envy, they become free from bondage. And we gave the example of Arjuna, Hanuman, there, right? And then 32 was opposite verse, right? Where he mentioned, but for those who have envy, who disregards his teaching, they are befooled and their life is ruined, right? And we gave the example there in the slide. If you go back and check, it was Duryodhana, such personalities, right? So it is like that's why we are highlighting here that there are different ends, like 3.31 versus 3.32. As well as in 9th chapter 25th verse, Krishna highlights this, that those who worship demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth as such beings. Yeah. And those who worship him will live with him in his eternal planet. Yeah. Golok. So it's not like, it's like we might have many different kind of flights going to the same destination, but it depends on which speed of light are you taking, a direct flight, indirect, what is it, but eventually it is taking us to that, right? So these are the other parts also, this will help you, reach Krishna eventually, like worshipping the Brahman aspect of Krishna or Paramatma. It will eventually lead to Krishna, which is, the end, a devotee Bhagwan aspect. But Krishna mentions again in 7th chapter that, that it will take bahunam janmanam ante, right? It will take many, many lives to reach ultimately Krishna, right? So this bhakti yoga, that's why we say it's a system of lift versus staircase, right? It will take you quicker, and faster and to your destination, right? So, um, so further to this, we are just highlighting the same, just on that aspect of shloka from Srimad Bhagavatam, which highlights akamaha sarva kamo va moksha kama udaratihi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. So whether one is without desire, which is the condition of the devotees, or is desirous of all fruitive results, or is after liberation, anything, one should with all efforts try to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for complete perfection, culminating into Krishna consciousness. So this is a Bhagavatam shloka. It says akamaha means no desire, no kama means no desire. Yeah, sarva kamo means all kind of fruitive desire. Yeah, moksha kamo or liberation desire. So be it be anything, right? What Krishna is saying that, it's like sarva kama, we can give the example of Dhruv Maharaj, right? Do anybody know the story of Dhruv Maharaj? So Dhruv Maharaj, he underwent penances. Why? Because he wanted a kingdom bigger than his father's, right? And he was desirous. He wanted to desire. He had that sarva kama, all desires when he was praying, but he was praying to Krishna again, right? But and in the end, what happened when Krishna gave him the darshan, all his desires, he he eventually asked Krishna just for what? For association of devotees, right? So all his the he realized that he was like asking for pieces of glass, versus a big diamond, right? So that's the beauty of it, right? So be it sarva kama, moksha kama, anything, so Krishna is saying clearly, so worship of any demigod or famous personalities, or any, nowadays we hear any new incarnation, they say, they tag it like this is the incarnation of this, may it be anyone. Krishna is saying in the end, that you have to, whatever you want, even with desires, come to me, right? And we also see in ninth chapter where Krishna highlights, there are four kind of people who approach, pious people: artho, arthartho, gnani, and jignasu, right? So it is like, sorry, it's in seventh chapter. So it is, artho is someone who has desires, right? Who is distressed, sorry. Artho is someone who is distressed and they go to worship Krishna. Oh, I'm really, upset, things are not working out. Even that is fine. Second is arthartho, that is desire, of wealth and others, like Dhruv Maharaj was, right? And then Gnani, and Gnani is someone who is in search of knowledge, right, about Krishna. And then Jignasu is inquisitive, someone who is really inquisitive to know about Krishna. So be it be any category, Krishna is, worshipping Krishna, going to Krishna, you will get it, will, right? That is the right thing. So and one thing we have to remember is when we hear about some incarnations or something, we have to very clearly know that all the incarnations of the Lord, you know they are mentioned in our Vedas. Yeah. So when we hear something, we have to act intelligently, that whether or understand from the authorized sampradaya, without wasting time and getting diverted or trapped into something, right? And that's why we need to utilize our spiritual master, and understand, rather than getting into the wrong way, right? So these incarnations, which we come across, they may have certain powers, right? Even yogis, when they undergo penances, they get certain kind of powers, but that doesn't mean that they are incarnation of the Lord. Yeah. In that case, if they were the incarnation of God, then even demons who came to kill Krishna, like Putana, even Ravana, they had so much powers. They could expand the amount they could, they could fly in the sky, they could multiply. So they had so many powers. That doesn't mean that they are superior, right? They are the new incarnation of the Lord. So it's very important to have that clarity in our mind. Any incarnation, if it is mentioned in our Vedas, is real, it should be considered as an incarnation, not by just looking at some powers. Yeah. So further, yeah, we have just highlighted how Krishna has repeatedly highlighted in Bhagavad Gita that he is the source, everything lies on him. And this is one of the again famous shlokas, from seventh chapter. Mataha parataram nanyat kinchid asti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam potram sutre mani gana iva. So, O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So nothing is superior to Krishna, right? So worship of Krishna is the thing. Even if we have desires, no desires, worshiping Krishna, because nothing is superior to him. Yeah. And then we again see in 10.8 how he explains that everything is emanating from him. Like aham sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvam prapartate iti matva bhajante mam bhuda bhava samanvitaha. So I'm the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Yeah. So several areas, this will help you correlate, right? Why do we say, just worship Krishna and everything will be done. Because Krishna himself has highlighted in several in our scriptures, it is highlighted, right? Um, and then, someone may ask the questions, right? That if by just worshiping Krishna, if one is awarded whatever they want, then why do people worship other material desires? Yeah, means worship other demigods. Why? Yeah. So see, we have to understand the difference by taking an example, maybe that say you are a mother or a father. Yeah, your child comes to you and say asks for a sweet, yeah, a chocolate. Now the mother knows the amount of sweets, the mother knows the background. So the mother, really would think, good for her child. So she may sometimes not grant the wish, right? And sometimes we feel that most of the time she doesn't grant our wish. I asked for this and it is not given, right? But unlike, say, the child's aunt has come down and the child asks something, right? The person will immediately give it, right? So, why? Because similarly, Krishna, he first sees whether this thing is good for us in a long run, in an hour for our ultimate end. Yeah, he really thinks he's the one actually who thinks good for us, who wants our good, like a mother, right? And like the demigods who might grant, very quickly, but it may not be good for our long term eventually, right? So we have to have that understanding that Krishna is all of our father, right? He's the universal father. We are part and parcels of Krishna, right? And he mentions that in 15th chapter, I think 7th shloka. Mamai vamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. That means we are fragmental parts and parcel of Krishna, right? So he also states, like I mentioned, right, in 14th chapter, that aham bija prajapita, means he is the seed giving father. And that's what we saw in prior verse also, aham sarvasya prabhavo. From him everything is emanating, spiritual worlds and material world. Yeah, so we should never think that demigods are equal to Krishna. It's a great offense. It's one of those 10 great offenses, right? So that should not be the thought process at all. Yeah. And why? For example, Dhruv Maharaj, right? I just mentioned Dhruv Maharaj had, he was that, he was that sarvakama. He wanted desire, fruitive result, right? And what happened? Krishna, what is Krishna's approach when Krishna gave darshan? Krishna purifies our heart of a devotee, and then he fulfills the material desire, so that we are not entangled in that material desire. We don't take, we don't get attached to that material desire. So the main thing is our purification first, and Krishna looks for that first. Yeah. So Krishna purifies the heart of a devotee and then fulfills material desire, so that they don't harm themselves. Yeah, the way he handled Dhruv Maharaj. Okay. So he did, Dhruv Maharaj did have a big kingdom. He had all the, this thing, material assets. But first, Krishna purified his heart, right? And then, right? And Dhruv Maharaj himself, after getting the darshan, he realized that he's asking nothing as compared to what he's getting, right? So, further, we will see some examples, not taking a lot of time, but how demigods, they get very easily pleased, and how their granting wishes might turn up, resulting in devastation for people in general. Yeah. So can somebody say who is this? Can anyone guess?
Hiranyakashipu,
Yes, Hiranyakashipu. And whom did he worship?
Brahmadeva.
Yes. So we know the story, right? Hiranyakashipu underwent a lot of penances, and eventually Brahmaji, he granted him the wish, right? And Hiranyakashipu actually asked Brahmaji for immortality, but Brahmaji told him clearly that I myself am not immortal. I have a day of birth and death, so I cannot. Nobody can grant that wish, right? So eventually Hiranyakashipu gave the list, right? I shouldn't be killed this way, that way, up, down, so he gave me with weapons, not with, not outside the house, inside the house, not on the sky, touching the ground, not by a human. And so there were many conditions he kept eventually, right? But in the end, who came? And Hiranyakashipu was a great havoc, right? Even for the demigods, they used to shiver, right? And eventually Krishna came in the form of Narsimhadev, and then he killed Hiranyakashipu, right? And same way, I think this story, does anyone know who is this demon with who is behind Shiva? It's Bhasmasur. So Bhasmasur, again, Shiva was pleased with his penances, and Bhasmasur asked for a benediction that if he puts his hand on anybody's head, that person should die immediately. And Shivji is our Bholenath, right? He's Ashutosh. So he granted the wish. And what in turn Bhasmasur did? He wanted to try that on Shivji only. Let me put my hand on top of Shivji and, really see if this is working. So it eventually turned, and then what happened to save that? Krishna took the incarnation of a special incarnation of Mohini, right? And he made Bhasmasur to put his hand on himself, on his own head, right? So again, Krishna saving here, right? So so that's why, demigods may grant the wish, but we see without purification, and that might eventually lead to the destruction of that person, and eventually at large also, right? So Krishna's approach is he purifies first the heart, and that's why we feel that it's, not every time like a mother we will get our wishes grant, only which is good for our ultimate end, that will be. Yeah. So I know Kamalaji may not be able to. Kavyaji, will you be able to read?
Yes, Mataji. Men in this world desire success in fruitive actions, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men get results from fruitive work in this world. The path of bhakti and gyan gives liberation, but the path of karma leads to bondage. Does it mean that there is some inequality in Krishna, the creator of all paths? No. Krishna has created the four varnas for people who have particular desires for enjoyment. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Kavyaji. So again, Krishna is highlighting here in 12th verse why people worship demigods. And we saw the background of that, right? Because their desires of success, of the fruitive results, they are granted very quickly. Yeah. But not good for our ultimate goal, to hit the ultimate goal, right? We will undergo, if we are granted our desire, we'll get attached to that desire. Yeah. And then we will be, if we are attached to that, then this whole cycle of birth and death, because of that bondage, will continue, right? So, and Krishna 7th chapter, because the middle 6 chapters are completely focused on bhakti yoga, we will see quite a lot of references here. I'm giving from 7th chapter, 9th chapter, of Gita, and we'll see how even in 7th chapter Krishna highlights such people who worship demigods. He calls them as less intelligent. That's what he's calling them. Yeah. So Krishna has mentioned it very clearly. Yeah. He's not partial. He has created this so-called, he has created well set up society. Yeah. So that all of us, being in that varnashram, we in different varnas, we still have the capacity to enjoy within the spiritual injunctions, right? Within the regulations. Yeah. These varnas are created actually by Krishna, to enjoy within that limitation of regulations, at the same time, having Krishna in center of our lives, right? And we will see the next shloka talks about what are the 4 varnas he created. Yeah. So see, we have to be very clear that Krishna is impartial. Yeah. It's us as living entities who are responsible for our own acts. Because remember that cycle, desire, right? It's us who desire, right? So the Lord only gives the facility for us by the material nature, right? And it's like when it rains, the rain water is poured across, right? Everywhere, on all the seeds also, right? And according to the type of the seed, it will sprout into a different plant, right? It depends on the seed, yeah? The way the rainwater is taken. So similarly, Krishna inspires all of us, all us as jivas, right, to act. But we act based on our desires and our past karmas, right? So even if we desire something like Dhruv Maharaj, we can approach Krishna. Why not? That's what Krishna is saying. Even with fruitive result, come to me, right? And we can get our desires fulfilled. Rather than following the path of demons like Hiranyakashipu, Ravan, we think that we are not that worse, right? But we are getting entangled by doing that, right? So Krishna highlights many times in Gita that demigod worship is for less intelligent people. Yeah. But even after we see that, yes, we tend to see demigod worships across. It's like even after several advertisements, right? Every movie, before the movie starts, there is a advertisement of smoking is injurious to health, drinking is injurious to health, right? There is a lot of advertisement around not to smoke, not to drink, but still some people do, right? Nobody can help because they're trying to be blind. It is very clearly advertised and mentioned, right, everywhere, right? So just moving on to the next shloka for today, and this is also one of the famous Bhagavad Gita shlokas. Jyoti ji, will you be able to read it?
Sure. Hare Krishna. चातुवर्ण्या मया सृष्टा गुणकर्म विभागशा तस्य कर्तारमपि मा विद्य कर्तारमभ्यम्. According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-donor,
Doer.
being
Yeah.
unchangeable. Bhagavad Gita 4.13. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. So Chatur Varnam, 4 Varnas, Maya Shrishtam, I have set it up. Krishna is saying this, right? Guna Karma Vibhagasha, based on what? Guna, modes, and karma of people. Tasya Kartaram Apimam, I am, creating these, right? Vidyakartaram Avyayam. But you need to know that I am yet the non-doer. Yeah. So so when just because he has created this, if I'm acting this way, Krishna is making me act this way. This is not the right thought, right? He has set up the system for us, but the acts are done by us. Yeah. So we are the person who act, right, based on our desires. Yeah. So if you remember in last session of 3rd chapter, I think we went through 4 different varnas and we were differentiating them with vasanas. So varnas are created by Krishna, and this is our deep rooted psychophysical nature. Varnas, we fall in one of the varnas, one of these varnas. It's not just that time point, 5,000 years back. No, even today. And next slide will go through that, which will make sense. Yeah, we fall in one of these varnas. Yeah, but vasanas are different to varnas. Vasanas are our desires. Okay, varnas are our deep rooted psychophysical nature, whereas vasanas are our superficial nature, which we develop. Varnas are as per dharma, as per the regulations, and we can dovetail this to Krishna bhakti. But the more vasanas increases, it is not as per within the regulations of dharma. Yeah. So here, which are the four varnas? We know that, right? We have mentioned here. So it is Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Now just let us look at these four divisions of human society, which is talking. Yeah. So first is the Brahmanas, which are the intelligent class of people. They are primarily, the modes we have mentioned here, please remember, it is primarily they have that mode. Yeah. But like I said before, each of us, we are mixture of modes, all the living entities. Some of us may have some mode in domination or some mode in slight. There is a mixture, like the colors, different colors in a palette. You cannot, right? So that is the variety, right? So Brahmanas are the intelligent class of people. They are primarily in the mode of goodness. Kshatriyas are the administrative people who are primarily in the mode of passion. Vaishyas, mercantile class, they are mix of mode of passion and ignorance. Yeah. And then comes Shudras, which are laborer class, which are mode of ignorance completely. We will learn in detail the modes. There is a complete chapter on the modes of material nature, 14th chapter. Yeah. And also 18th chapter. Everything we do, even charity, Krishna has mentioned in 18th chapter, it can be in mode of goodness, mode of passion, or ignorance. Yeah. So every activity in itself, and we will learn a bit more on that. So let's not overload ourselves right now. As we do the middle 6 chapters of Bhakti Yoga, we'll be able to grasp the, modes also. So here, even in today's world, it applies even now, based on Krishna split. For example, intelligent class of people, we have the scientists, right, with us, and then Kshatriyas, these are mainly the admin groups of each corporate. Anywhere you go, there are admin, right, groups, and there are management groups, right? So these are, falling in that class, administrative class. And then comes Vaishyas, right? These are the, say, our finance department, right? They are mercantile class. And then Shudras are our operational support staffs, who support groups which we have in different companies, the way it is laid out. All of us are doing respective within this something on based on our guna and karma. Yeah. And like I said, the last 6 chapters, quite a lot of detail is given in each of the mode, is what exactly it is. Yeah. So how this is staggered is, say there's a building, the lowest, right? We have to understand the hierarchy. The least falls is ignorance, mode of ignorance. Yeah. It's like people with bad habits, going to drinking, smoking, going to bar, uh, discotheque, or meat eating, all of that falls within ignorance. Yeah. Passionate about something heavily, like some activity, business, right, or some kind of playing. So then comes mode of goodness. Yeah. So people who go to temple, and we have to remember that, okay, let me cover this. Krishna has created different set of duties depending on psychophysical nature. Psychophysical nature is our varnas. Yeah. So we fall based on our psychophysical nature, based on our past karma and desires, right? So we have to, one thing here is, we have to understand that a person in Krishna consciousness is above even the mode of goodness. So above the goodness mode is pure goodness, which is Vishuddha Sattva, right? Because Krishna is transcendental to all this system. He has created it, but he is not under it. That's what he's trying to say there, right? So he has created the system for us, right? But because Krishna is transcendental and above these modes, a person in Krishna consciousness, a pure devotee, is also transcendental to these divisions, yeah, to these modes. So in goodness, we will learn this in the modes chapter, that there comes a complacency. You, okay, I'm not doing bad for others and I'm not getting bad, that is enough. So it is not Krishna consciousness centric. So it is a complacent behavior reaches at certain time point. I'm happy in what I have, that kind of a thing. So but yeah, let's not go there. It is again a vast thing. So Now the question comes maybe that Krishna also appeared as a Kshatriya, right? Kshatriya family, and he performed his obligatory duty. Yeah. Now, why is it that then he is also under? So namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spruha iti mam yo bhijanati karma bhirna na badhyate. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work. Understands, right? This verse is similar to that 4.9. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vetti tattvataha. Yeah. Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti so Arjuna. So it does not. So if one understands Krishna's activities, appearance, that he does not come under this material modes. He does not get influenced under this material modes. Yeah. That will, then we will not be bonded to this world. We will also be free from this reaction. Yeah. So he who knows that Krishna is transcendental to this material world will attain liberation as well. That's what Krishna is saying here, right? Now we linked it, yes, to this shloka also, 3.22, right? Now we learned here how Krishna engages in work when he appears, right? Just now we mentioned he was born in a Kshatriya family. He did all his course as a son, as a father, as a husband, everything, right? So he does engage in work. But he highlights here, in 3.22 as well, that na me partasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana nanavaptam avaptavyam varta eva cha karmani. O son of Pratha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I need to obtain anything. And yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. And we also learned this, that he's engaged in everything. Why? Because he wants to set that example. We also saw shloka in third chapter, yad yad achariti shreshtas tat tad eve tarojanana. Krishna highlights that common people follow great people, so they have to set example. We took the example of Janak Maharaj also, right? So Krishna also did all his duties as obligatory duties, right? Why? Because he also have to set a perfect example, right? So he's not under this modes, he doesn't get him. And he highlights that in 7th chapter, that there's a particularly shloka where it says that Daivi Yashagunamai Mama Maya Durutyaya Mama Eva Ye Prapadyante Mayam Etantarantite. So he highlights that this Devi, it is one of his energies and it is under him. It's not that the modes are above Krishna, modes are under Krishna. And he highlights that in 7.14 also. Yeah. So just picking some key, thing from Prabhupada's purport here. Rama Prabhaji, will you be able to read this?
There are two classes of men. Some of them are full of polluted material things within their hearts, and some of them are materially free. Krishna consciousness is equally beneficial for both of these persons. Those who are full of dirty things can take to the line of Krishna consciousness for a gradual cleansing process. Following the regulative principles of devotional service, those who are already cleansed of the impurities may continue to act in the same Krishna consciousness so that others may follow their exemplary activities and thereby be benefited.
Yeah, thank you. So be it anybody, this Krishna consciousness is universal. It's for all. For some class to purify themselves, like we are doing our sadhana. Why? To purify ourselves, right? We fall with that. And we also have examples with her, right? Exemplary examples with us, that others are doing that still, even no matter you reach what level. Why? To set examples. right? And similarly, something further is taken from purport that I can maybe let Reshma ji, will you be able to read it?
Yes, Mataji. Arjuna's desire to retire from activities on the battlefield was not approved by the Lord. Once one need only know how to act. To retire from the activities of the Krishna consciousness and to sit aloof, making a show of Krishna consciousness, is less important than actually engaging in the field of activities for the sake of Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Again, Prabhupada highlights becoming a devotee does not mean inactivity, right? Or renouncing. Devotee means more action for Krishna. Yeah. So, so we as devotees just, yes, it is the right thing that we are hearing the classes, we are trying to do our sadhana, chanting and reading, but we should also, try to engage. That's what he's saying. Engage in service of Krishna, in active service of Krishna, right? We have Janmashtami coming up, right? So yeah, whatever we can do, to serve Krishna, that active service, we should, and that will purify us. Just by reading, maybe we are able to understand, but that practical experience, that will come as we extend our service to Krishna, right? And that will purify us. Now, this is the section, third section, which we have covered. The fourth section, we are going to just touch base a bit on it today, not completely because it's a vast topic on its own. And this title is Understanding Karma on Platform of Knowledge, that is Jnana. Yeah. Now, um, there is a difference between, that's what I was trying to say in the previous slide, to know Krishna and to know about Krishna. So just to know by name or to know about a person is different. We can compare that with a doctor, and we can see on the on the slide, we have a child with the mother and a doctor, right? So who do you think the child, who knows the child better?
Mother.
Yes, right. It's natural, mother, right? So same way, not everyone can know Krishna. If we ask anyone that, do you know? Yes, they might say yes immediately, right? But if you ask them second time, do you really know about Krishna? You might hear a bit of hesitance, right? Only a devotee who knows Krishna's that tattvataha, that reality, that he is the controller, his activities are inconceivable for our limited senses, right? Actually knows a Krishna like the mother of the child, right? So there's a difference by just superficially knowing and knowing about, trying to have that inquisitiveness, that interest to know about Krishna, to try to understand with our whatever we can with our limited senses, right? So he is the creator and culmination of our all paths. Yeah, we read this, right? So can I maybe ask Shivani ji, will you be able to read this?
Yeah. Hare Krishna. All the liberator souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. Having said that one has to work according to the examples of previous bona fide devotees, Krishna will now explain why one's action should not be independent. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. So because we learned that Krishna consciousness is nothing but a universal thing, right? It's not applicable to a certain class of people and not applicable for certain, no, it's universal, right? And Krishna states that in 15th chapter that, Vedeshcha sarver ahameva vedyo. So of all the Vedas, I am to be known. What is the, what is it that we have to know from this vast Vedas? Krishna, right? Hence, what he's highlighting here is that previously the great souls, liberated by understanding this transcendental nature of Krishna, that tattva, right? And similarly, he's asking Arjuna to follow the footsteps. And one thing again highlighted here is bona fide devotees, right? We learned the 4 bona fide sampradayas we have, right? And we need to be sure that the devotees, we follow the right path, right? So the great exalted bona fide devotees, we have to follow them. And that's what we learned before, that they don't have to perform any, they don't have responsibility, they don't have to perform any activity. They do it as an obligation. Why? To set examples for us, right? Now, and that's why we should not perform any action thinking independently. This is fine. I think it shouldn't be from our own thought process. It should come in from the line of that bona fide sampradaya, from that bona fide spiritual master or guidance, right? So we cannot use our limited brain saying this way, I think it is okay. I think shouldn't be there. Otherwise we think in a day or in a minute, we think so much, right? And Krishna empowers these individuals. It's not that they are some normal human beings. No, he empowers, these exalted devotees and sends them as an example for us so that we can follow them. Only when we see an example, right? We learned that quote, right? The power of example is much more than the example of. So it's like we need to follow them, right? We need to, only when we see, we won't get confused then. Otherwise there are so many paths in today's world. If we follow that bona fide thing, then we will never have that confusion. And along with these scriptures of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna is sending these empowered devotees to us. Why? For us to learn. It's only for us, not for him. Krishna doesn't have need to do anything, right? So this is the 16th shloka. So we will do today until the 17th shloka. So these are the last 2 shlokas of today. And maybe Hari Krishna ji, will you be able to read the 16th one on the screen?
Yeah, yes, Mataji. Kim karma kimakarmeti kavayopyatra mohitaha tataiha karma pravakshami yajnatva mokshase shubhat. Even the intelligence are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. Bhagavad Gita 4.16.
Thank you very much, Hari Krishna ji. So, kim karma? Karma is what? Action. Kim akarmeti? Akarma means inaction. Yeah. Kavayo api atra mohitaha. Yeah. Kavayo is intelligent people. Even intelligent people get mohita, means bewildered. Yeah. Tatte karma pravikshami. Yeah. I shall explain to you, what is actually action and inaction. Yagnatva mokshashi shubhat. Knowing this, jnatva, knowing this, you will get moksha, means you will be liberated, right? Because, it is not easy to understand the principles of karma. Quite a lot of time we think, why is this happening? I never did something. And we heard that example of a butcher being killed, right? So there was a butcher who was killing the cow, right? And the cow was running away, and the butcher was following the cow. And there was a person on the street who saw this happening, and he saw where the cow fled. And the butcher reached there and he asked this person, did you see the cow? And this person pointed the cow. I saw the cow going there. And in the end, the butcher killed the cow, right? Now we see in the next life, uh, a Brahmana, he's visiting, he's traveling, and he visits a house of a couple. And he asks for, asks them that if he could take the shelter outside their home. They had a bit of space, so to spend the night there. So he was sleeping there, and suddenly he sees the people of the whole community coming and, kicking him and trying to kill him and beating him up very badly. Why? Because the husband is killed, and the wife points that this person who is sleeping outside, the Brahmana, killed my husband. So it is actually the wife who killed the husband. And this wife is nobody but the cow who was killed. And the person who was sleeping outside, the Brahmana keeps wondering, I have never, he somehow saves his life, and he keeps thinking, I never did anything wrong to anybody in this life. But in the past life, he was the one who pointed the butcher, showing the cow, right? He said this truth, but not the right? So the consciousness should be right? So he got blamed for that. And then the butcher who was trying to kill the cow, this time he was killed, which is the husband. So it is very complex to understand these intricacies of karma. We are just talking about 2 lives, and we have been living millions of life, right? All of us. So it's very difficult, and that's what Krishna is acknowledging here, that it's not easy to understand the principles of karma, because be it action, a good action or a bad action, at the end both will bind us. If we are doing good actions, then we have to take birth to to face the results of the good actions. If we do bad, we have to take again birth to to bear the results of the bad action. So good or bad action both bind us. That's why Krishna is highlighting here term akarma, akarmeti, inaction. Yeah. So we'll come there. So action should not be independent. That's what Krishna is saying there, right? To act in Krishna consciousness, one has to follow the leadership authorized person who are in line of disciplic succession. Yeah. Actually, the principles of religion can only be laid down by Krishna himself. He lays it down, right? Out of causeless mercy to his devotees, the Lord explains directly to Arjuna what action is and what inaction is. Only action performed in Krishna consciousness can deliver a person from entanglement of material existence. So that's why I was saying, be it good action or bad action, you have to take birth to bear the fruits. But if the action is in Krishna consciousness, then it will help us to liberate, because it does not result into any reaction, any good or bad. It is in Krishna consciousness. Yeah, because they are laid by Krishna itself, right? So this is called as inaction. Any action in Krishna consciousness is inaction. Yeah. So, and this can help us eventually. It will keep purifying us, and it will not cause any resultant reaction, right? And then eventually we'll get rid of, once our quota finishes, and we are continuously in inaction, then we'll be out of this birth and death cycle. Okay. Because by then our consciousness will also be purified with the transcendental knowledge, knowing Krishna. Okay. Now, I will not spend much time here because we did go through this, right? So good action or bad action, you cannot determine a good or a bad action is good or bad just by looking at the action, right? For example, we took this example in the 9 sessions, that there are 2 robbers who are stealing away the money from the bank. This is a bad, straight away. Now we see that one of the robber, he's very nice, and he's distributing the money they got from the bank equally between both. Distributing money, just looking at that action, we might feel it's a good action, but no, that's not the case, right? So the action does not determine whether it is good or bad. It's the consciousness behind it. Similarly, we took the example where a person is pickpocketer, and then he gives charity, right? So again, the charity action is, you cannot determine, right? The consciousness behind that is the key, right? So if it was really, a person who wants to repent after stealing money, the proper repentance has to be done. Maybe he gives it back to the person from whom he took it, or he informs the police. So there should be a repentance. If we just know the background, only then we will know whether the action was right or not. The consciousness, the intention behind it, right? So if we similarly try to utilize somebody else's assets without giving it back, then we are not doing the right thing, right? He's taking, and he's not, he's taking somebody else's assets and not giving it back. It's not a right action. Similarly, our brain, our hand, our eyes, everything is made by Krishna. It's given by Krishna. And if we are not giving it back to Krishna, then we are not right. We are equally doing the wrong action, right? And how do we give it back? We learned that in 3rd chapter also, by performing sacrifice. And for Kalag Yuga, what is the main sacrifice? Chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, right? So that is the way we try to give it back to Krishna. Okay, this is the last shloka of today. Jyotiji, will you be able to read it?
Yes. Hare Krishna. कर्मणो अपि बोधव्य च विकमरण अकर्मण्यस्य बोधव्य गहना कर्मणो गति. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. Bhagavad Gita 4.17. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. So 3 terms, very important terms used here. One is karma, vikarma, and akarma. Yeah. So karma is action. Vikarma is forbidden action, which is bad action. And akarma is action in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So again, Krishna is highlighting how it is so difficult to understand karma, right? So sometimes what happens is, what is this picture? What is happening here?
Like in series blocks kept there, and was just he pushed some force with some force.
Yeah, so it's like a Doppler effect, right? It's like someone is acting without knowing that in future it will react on him only. What is going to happen when he's going to push this? Eventually it is going to fall on him, right? So sometimes we also act without knowing the reactions. Yeah. So and that's what, let me just bring up the text on this. Yeah. So if one is serious about liberation from material bondage, one has to understand the distinction between these 3 terms: action, inaction, and vikarma, which is unauthorized action. Okay. To understand Krishna consciousness and action according to its mode, one has to learn one's relationship with the Supreme. One who has learned perfectly knows that every living entity is an eternal servitor of the Lord, and that consequently one has to act in Krishna consciousness. Bhagavad Gita whole conclusion is directed towards this, right? So the whole conclusion of this is taken from the purport, of course. Conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is what? Jivera swarupa hoye Krishnera nityadas. So for us to understand, our position, Krishna's position, and our relationship with him. And what is that? We are eternal servitors, servants of Krishna, right? So that's our original position, right? So just giving some slides from the 9 sessions as well, so that these 3 terms sit in our mind well. And we will be next week doing the session quite a lot of focus will be on this inaction, which is action in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So just few slides to make it clear. So what is this action? It looks completely a sinful action, right? So it is a bad karma, yeah, vikarma or forbidden action. Yeah. Now giving food to the needy. What is this? It is, say, yeah, good action, right? Punya, yeah, giving alms, right? Feeding the poor. Yeah. But of course, like we discussed before, we need to know the background, right? So it is coming from the right source, right? So now the thought process of this vikarma is people who do such activity. Their thought process is that I just want to enjoy God's property and exploit it, and I will do as I wish. Actions are independent there, right? And that's what Krishna is highlighting before. Action should not be independent, right? So this is vikarma. Now the people who are doing action, which is karma, which is good karma, right? They have the mindset that I want to enjoy God's property, but following God's advice. Yeah. So these are their good actions. Right? They are within the regulations, right? But they are not necessary Krishna consciousness. That's the thing. And then comes akarma. Akarma, it's like this cashier. We gave this example. Yeah. Cashier, day in, day out, what is their job? Counting money, what they receive. And people come to take money. They don't feel upset, right? Somebody is coming to take money, or they don't feel happy when somebody is giving them money. Yeah. And whatever they get, they put it back in the bank. They give it to the source. Yeah. They give it back. So if, say, tomorrow, the cashier feels the need, can I take some money? No, right? She's doing her job. It will be sinful if she takes some, but she will get, as a payback, her salary in the month, right? She will get it. She'll get some money as form of her paycheck, right? So, which is enough for her to live her life. Yeah. So similarly, we should always take only enough for us, which is needed for us to live our basic life, and rest, offer it to Krishna, use it in Krishna consciousness activity. And that's why we also highlighted in one of the sessions, in the 3rd chapter, that, when we offer food, right, we make food and we take some of it and offer, and, we bhoga, right? And then it becomes prasada when we mix the food. Similarly, whatever we earn, some percentage of that, if we put in Krishna consciousness activity, then our rest of the salary becomes prasad, right? So we have to utilize, we should not be here to exploit Krishna's resources, not giving it back. Anything we do, our mindset should be in Krishna consciousness. If we are using anything, and we can give an example here of Hanumanji, be it anger, wrath, service, anything he used in Krishna consciousness. He was a great devotee of Rama, right? So even his anger, he burned the whole Lanka, right? And that's why when we work for Krishna, when we have our actions towards Krishna consciousness, it will not have any reactions, maybe good or bad, no positive or negative, because our actions are in Krishna consciousness. It becomes transcendental. Yeah. So we see how Arjuna also, it was against his will, right? But he was running away to the forest, renouncing, but he did it, following Krishna's instructions, right? His actions, he was fighting, but for Krishna. And the same battlefield, Duryodhan was fighting, but he was not aligned with Krishna, right? He was not following Krishna's instructions. So that's the difference. Yeah. So, and we will do a bit more on this, of course, next week, on inaction. And how can we make, again, we all have seen this slide before, but just wanted to have this in here, so that, we need to have that akarma thought process, that everything belongs to Krishna, and we have to offer everything back to Krishna. and then take the remnants in the form of prasad. Yeah, and that will not generate any papa or punya, nor positive nor negative. Yeah, so how can we make our house atmosphere worshipping deities at home? Yeah, offering food, you know, bhoga to Krishna, you know, having family members, friends who are devotees of Krishna, because that will allow us not to focus on speaking something, yeah, out of this thing. It is more Krishna, right? And such devotees are really close to Krishna. He does highlight in 12th chapter, I think, that you know, the devotees who discuss about it, who gives the katha, there is, you know, those devotees are really close to his heart. Yeah, and distribute prasad to our community, rightly placed charity. Charity is as an action, we cannot say it's good or bad. You know, charity to a terrorist organization versus charity to Krishna consciousness activities. You know, so it should be rightly placed. The consciousness behind charity, the intention behind charity plays the key. Yeah, and then perform ethical work. Yeah, and we know out of 84 lakh species, then you end up getting human life, right? So it's a junction for us. It's a platform, right, to go back to Krishna, because we have that advanced level of consciousness versus to animals or plants or any other living entity, right? So we should utilize that consciousness, channelize it, you know, no matter what varna we are in, dovetail it to Krishna consciousness activity, right? So with that, we conclude today's session. And I would just request you all, I know most of you joined the morning chanting session, and hope your chanting is going well. And yeah, please do continue joining this morning chanting sessions, right? Hare Krishna.